audience that's actually waiting, you think?
Hey, welcome everybody. You're listening to the Business Unscripted podcast. We're here again for another show where we kind of take the script, we toss it away. We're going to skip the fluff. We're going to get down to some real chat, real discussion between me and Duarne here. I'm your host, Dave Worden. I'm a business coach, fractional CFO, and a fellow entrepreneur just like you. I'm joined here by my business partner, Duarne Bernhagen. Duarne, tell us a little about yourself, buddy.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for that intro. So, Aussie entrepreneur living in the Philippines. And, I just love talking about all things business, AI, entrepreneurial. And Dave's always good fun to have a banter with.
Yeah, right. We always end up generally off topic, which is why we went with the unscripted kind of approach. So, today, again, we hope you're having a wonderful end to your week. So grab your cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. Duarne, my friend, how has your week been going? Good week?
It's been a good week. It's been a hectic week. We're getting closer to D-Day for my wife's planned birth.
Love it. Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's coming up very quickly later this month. So, that's taking a bit of attention. It's also causing me to try and get everything lined up and ready so that I can actually take those few days off and be there for her.
And not have to worry about it, right? Yep.
Exactly. Sure. Of course, I'll be bringing the laptop to the hospital, but it's my hope I won't have to actually use it. So, at least not for the purpose of work.
Right. Maybe you're going to share some pictures and the baby and all that fun stuff, right?
Absolutely. And besides, the internet's not that great at the hospital anyway, as I experienced last year when I went through all this around the same time. So exciting times ahead. But it's just been a busy week with lots of goals getting kicked. How about yourself?
It's been a good week. Had a lot of good client interactions. Again, like you said, kind of making progress every day. And I think that's the thing that, we as business owners need to focus on is that, it's small actions, towards your goal every single day. You don't need to make this giant leap every day, or and if you don't, you're not a success. It's like just keep that vision in mind and take momentum, because momentum builds. As you're continuing to take a step today, then it becomes like a step and a half tomorrow, then 2 steps and 3 steps, right? And when you look back at the progress that you've made, and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe it's been that much progress. I can't believe where I was. Even if you think about, Duarne, or, even myself, we think about, even a year ago, the people we are now, the knowledge we have, the work we've built, right? The things we've put together over just a year, seemed like it was so far away 12 months ago.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's just about making more steps forward than you do go backwards, right? In a lot of cases, we're going to find situations where, you're trying to inch forward every single day. There's going to be days where you just fall backwards, that something happens and it takes you off track. But as long as you collectively get more steps forward, that's winning. That's, that's winning the game. And that's what we're here for. We want to be here to try and help everybody listening learn how they can do that one extra thing to help them win their game.
Absolutely. And which is one of the reasons why, we have started and revamping our mastermind program to provide that for people. But we're not going to talk about that today until later. We'll remind you of the mastermind later in the program. But if you want some ideas of what it is, look down below. But for yourself, Duarne, for me, when I think about it, and maybe you're the same way, it comes down to like consistency, and I've had a conversation earlier with one of my clients earlier this week, and consistency starts with calendar management, right? And time management. And so many people struggle with, just this one aspect of their day, and or consistency. And it comes down to, like, when you ask, and I've asked, well, how do you manage your time? They're like, well, I don't know. I just kind of like hope I get things done, or I have a to-do list, right? And no prioritization or nothing like that. So before I kind of jump into the advice I gave the clients, Jordan, for yourself, what do you do to like keep yourself accountable and keep yourself consistent throughout the day?
For me, Dave, basically what I do is this. I have my calendar meetings scheduled, and anything that's in the calendar gets done. So that's my reminder. That's my Bible of what I need to do for the day in relation to meetings and catch-ups with people. If it's not in the calendar and you want to have a meeting, I will do it, but it depends on what I've got sitting on my list of priorities, and then I'll go from there. And the other thing I do is when I wake up, I work out what is my list of things I need to get done today. And I will try and tackle those. And then whatever time's left, I'll spend on other tasks. But sometimes I don't get to the things that I want to get done initially, and they will roll over to the next day. And I've just learned to accept that. I don't get too beat up about it, because there was a time when I'd stay at my desk until I got things done. And then what's the value proposition there? I mean, if it's really, really critical, start it earlier in the day and get it done. But if you've got an extra few hours before you deliver something, well, maybe getting that extra couple of hours sleep's more important.
Well, I think ultimately too, like, so many people, they have such a large to-do list, because when you're a business owner, especially as a solopreneur, there are so many different things that you're trying to get done on a regular basis. And what happens is people get that kind of analysis type of paralysis, right? Where they're like, oh my God, there's so many things to do. I don't know what to do. Here's the thing that you should focus on, right? Take the top 3 things, and that's your to-do list for today. That's it, right? Don't try to get 15 things done every single day. Like, take the top 3, work on those, get those done first. Then what you can do is focus on, okay, what can I do maybe towards like a bigger goal or a bigger to-do that I can take a step or 2 today to get that done. That's like number 1. Number 2 that I would suggest for a lot of people is during the regular business hours, right? So let's say you're a B2B sort of, business owner. Your clients, your ideal clients, are busy during the business day, right? They're active, right? They're in their business. They're taking phone calls. So you shouldn't be spending the majority of your day trying to do admin tasks for your business. You shouldn't be trying to create your social media at 9 a.m. in the morning. So if you're doing your social media right now, instead of outreaching potential clients, you're costing yourself opportunity, right? Those social media things, those, admin tasks, back office tasks, bookkeeping, et cetera, if you're doing all that, that should be done after hours when your clients aren't active, right? Because you miss opportunities by not prioritizing outreach, not prioritizing communications and conversations during the hours when your clients are most active.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, if you're making excuses for not doing outreach because you're so busy doing other things, either delegate them or find alternative times to do it. Try, because you can't go fishing when the fish are not there. And, you wouldn't go fishing in a pond where there was nothing. You go fishing in a river where there's something, right? And this is where our time is the same. We need to make sure that we're spending our time wisely in the time zones that we're going to be communicating with people. I work across 3 different time zones typically. So I find myself having to be available for a large period of time over those time zones. But even so, I choose when I'm going to do meetings in each time zone and give me plenty of time in between to do everything else that I need to do. The other thing too is sometimes I think part of time management is working out what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, but how you can do it. So if you've got something that can be handled with an email, handle it with an email. If you've got something that'll be quicker to handle with a phone call, handle it with a phone call. Too many times I've found emails going back and forth that could have been settled with a 10-minute phone call. And I look at my team doing it all the time, and I'll be like, hey guys, book a calendar meeting, spend 10 minutes, have the conversation, get yourself sorted, move on. And it's a really big problem I see out there where people are wasting their time communicating with the wrong technique. Using AI to help you write an email if you need to, so you can get it done in a fraction of the time. So you're not sitting there writing an email for half an hour, 45 minutes that someone's going to take 2 minutes to read.
Right. Or see it at all.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, just choose what you do and choose it wisely. And don't be afraid to delegate. I legitimately had a call with a guy earlier this week. He's a business owner, and he was talking about getting his website built with us. And we're having a conversation about it. And I said, so how long's it been? He goes, well, it's 2 years since they started working on this website for me. And they've just delivered it, my team internally. And I have to say, I'm not really excited about it.
Yeah.
I get it. I totally get it. So what was the delay? He goes, well, we had other work. We had paid client work coming in, and we do computer repairs. Yes, my team can do it, but, you know, it just didn't come out the way I expected it. And we talked about the pricing. Turned out he'd spent over double the amount that he would have expected to have to pay for the website versus what we could charge to
by having his team do it internally, the hours.
Exactly.
You know,
and you know, or he could have paid half that and had someone like us come in and do it externally for half the price and get it delivered in a fraction of the time without all the stress internally that he's had to endure and go through. And that was just a prime example.
I think that relates to a lot of things, I feel. You know, so many people, they're like, oh, I can do this internally, but it takes you 2, 3, 4 times. I remember having a conversation with a client, I think it was 2 weeks ago, you know, where they are interested in doing a lot of like the computer, the back office work, all of that. But even they admit, like, it takes them 2 or 3 times longer to do it and to get these things accomplished. It's like, well, let's think time value. You know, I get that we feel like we have to understand everything in order to do it. But in the end, if it takes you 3 times as long every single time you need to do it, and this is like a recurring task, you know, what other things could you possibly be doing that can make you more money or that can give you back more opportunity than trying to just have to do something that, you know, you feel like you're supposed to do? When in reality, I always believe, you know, you should play to your strengths. Stop trying to, you know, learn your weaknesses and get better at your weaknesses. Like, that's not how you're going to grow and scale. Like, that's not how you're going to be more successful. Understanding where you're weak at and going and finding somebody that's a partner or you know, or a software to offset that, and then focus completely on your strengths. So if you're great at talking to people and meeting people, great, maximize that. That's how you're going to grow. If you're great at the numbers and problem solving, then find somebody else to go and sell for you if you don't like to sell. You know, there's a lot of commission people out there that'll only work on commission. The thing you got to do is you got to make sure you have a good product, a good service, and you have history that person can go out and sell. You know, but stop. I think far too many people put too much emphasis on their weaknesses and they forget to play to their strengths. Stop playing to your weaknesses and play to your strengths, man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine that in sports? If we put our best sports stars and we said, we want you to focus on a team sport, we want you to play in positions that we know you're not very good at instead of the positions you are really good at, because we want you to be a really good all-rounder player. I mean, it just doesn't happen, not in professional levels. And I think when you get into business, when you start hiring people, one of the things we look at doing is we hire people based on their skill set. Now, I wouldn't go hiring somebody and paying them top dollar if they had to learn all this stuff. Or if I had a project with a pressing timeline, I wouldn't hire somebody who couldn't do the job that I was looking to do. So why would I put that pressure on myself? The amount of times I hear, like, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'll code. I'll learn how to do it. I'll learn how to do the design work. I'll learn how to create the marketing. Yeah, look, you could learn 10, 15% of it quickly, then offload that or delegate that to somebody else. That gives you at least the basic understanding to be able to understand if what you've handed off is getting done the way you wanted it to be done.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to do it yourself. I think there's that, you know, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, we fall into that category a lot where we feel like we have to have complete control. We have to have complete control over every aspect of it. We have to know every single part of it. And it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just a case of having a team. It's having a team that you delegate to, or offshore portions of what you do, or, get outsource it to, or contract it out if they can do it better. I think that's just how it really falls down for me. One of the things that I see constantly is a lot of people come down with that feeling that they're trying to do everything. And then when you sit there and you document it out and you work out how much time they're spending on certain tasks, you go, well, okay, well, how about you go and sit with Joe Blow over here? He's really good at doing that. Learn how he does it. If you can catch on really quick and use his techniques, then go ahead and keep doing it. If you think it's better just to outsource to him and get him to do it for you in the future, then maybe make that decision. But at least you understand what's required from you at the time.
Absolutely. And so the other thing, and I kind of wanted to kind of go back a little bit more to kind of consistency and calendar management. The last thing that I kind of talked about this advice with a couple of my clients this week is you have to have an understanding of where you're losing time within your day. But the only way that you can do that is to perform the time study. And I highly suggest that people do this for a week, where you document, okay, here's what I'm doing from the time I wake up till the time I go to bed. And I've said this before, as business owners, you technically do not have time off. You shouldn't have time off, and you shouldn't have the expectation in your mind that I'm only going to be working 8 hours a day. That's not going to be successful. You're not going to grow. You're not going to be successful if your idea as a business owner is that you're only going to work 9 to 5. So you have to lose that. And so in order to understand where you're spending your time, you have to do a time study. So for example, let's just say for Monday, you started on a Monday and you say, all right, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. for whatever reason, you wake up, you get ready for your day, you make your coffee, you let the dogs out, whatever. And it takes you 2 hours to do that. And then at 9 a.m. you finally get into work and you start work. Then from 9 to 11, you're typically working on, client emails or client work or outreach or checking up on, different things. Mark that down. And then from 11 to 12, you're doing outreach. And then from 12 to 1, you're now taking an hour lunch. And then, plan the whole day out, just as an example, just like that. But what you want to do is then at the end of the week, you're going to look back and you say, oh, wow, like, do I really need to spend 2 hours every morning getting ready for the day? Do I really need to spend another 2 hours when I start my day, just checking emails and responding to people? Like, can I cut that down? Can I save time and do actual more outreach? Can I do more proposal generations or finding clients that meet, me that's more impactful to my business? What you may find too is that at the end of your day, you're finding that, for a week, you're doing housework, for 7 hours a week, when some of that stuff could be outsourced. It's cheaper, so these are where you're able to find ideas of where you're able to save time in your week and give you more opportunity to do outreach, to do the AdWords work that you feel like you have no time. And that's the idea. Like nobody has more time than anybody else, right? Like, Duarne, you don't have more time in your day than I do, right? We have the same 24 hours. You may use it better. And that's where this time study is going to help you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just trying to.
No, go ahead. So one of the things that I did this years ago, would have been probably about 15 plus years ago. I was working for a company and I remember feeling overwhelmed. And my manager came up and said, look, I sat down and he said, I just feel overwhelmed. I've got so much happening. And he goes, well, tell me what you do. And I said, okay. He goes, here's what I want you to do. For the next week, I want you to write down every task that you work on and how long it takes you. So I did this. By the end of day 3, I'd identified what my problem was. My problem was simple. I was doing all different tasks at all different times of day as they were coming in and being reactive to tasks. So what I started to do is schedule off time during the day. This would be for all my return authorities. This would be for my service work. This would be for my order processing. This would be for customer communication and follow-up. This would be for processing orders again, etc. And what I found is just by doing that, I structured my day better to allow myself to feel so much less overwhelmed. The work was the same, but I was able to come out with a couple of hours of free time at the end of the day, which allowed me to do further outreach and communication with clients at the time. But what I didn't realize is just that simple thing where I was being reactive and finding myself every time something comes in, I'm like, oh, I got to deal with it. Oh, I got to deal with it. I felt the overwhelm. Where when this happened and I had this revelation, I was able to, that's okay. I'll deal with that during that period. All right. I'll deal with that over there. Oh, I'll deal with that then. I wouldn't get so stressed. And I think that's the key. It's about finding, we always, in such a world, how many times have you picked up a cell phone and found yourself distracted before you actually do what you picked it up to do with it? Like I pick up my phone to do something. Exactly, right? I got to the point I turned off 80% of my notifications on apps because I got so annoyed with all of the notifications coming up. And in fact, I'm probably due to turn off notifications again on more apps. But I did that because I was consistently getting bombarded with crap that I didn't want to focus on or was taking me away from the focus. And then I'd sit there and go, oh shit, what was I actually picking my phone up for? I'd start back on another task and realize that the task I was trying to complete, I needed my phone for to verify or get an authentication code or something, hadn't been finished. So these things are normal. These things are really relevant. But having some time schedule and setting yourself up, like you can put your phone into do not disturb mode. You can put your,
you can customize that too. Like I've been doing that recently, is where you can customize the hours where you don't even have to think about it. So, for example, like if you're using Apple, like that's what I have, and I'm sure you can probably do it on Android, but you can actually set up so like your work hours. So like Monday through Friday, you can have it from the hours of 7:30 to 6 p.m. It's in do not disturb, and you can customize who you get notifications from, what apps can send you notifications, if it goes into silent mode or whatever. So like allowing and giving yourself these things that you don't have to consistently remember to do, but you set it up so it's automatic. You just become that much more. I don't even think about it now that my phone's on productivity mode or do not disturb, whatever it ends up being, whatever we call it, because it just happens and it just helps.
And it's about learning the technology you got. Like these smartwatches are great, right? Except they interrupt you all day long if you let them. So use the features on the phone of do not disturb. Turn off notifications. If you've got lots of people messaging you on Facebook Messenger, put it on mute. If you're in a group chat with the family and they are just having a big old conversation amongst themselves and they're blowing up your notification, it's bing, 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 bing in the bottom notification of your screen, just mute for a few hours until you get what you need to be done. Don't feel bad about it, because what you've got to do is part of time management is getting rid of the distractions, trying to minimize your distractions so that you can get on with it. If you've got a really important task and you need to, you got, your kids coming in and out of your office all day long, I can relate. Then either have that conversation and tell them that you're busy for the next couple of hours and that they shouldn't come into the room, or lock the door so you can get the work done, right? I mean,
lock the door, put a sign on it, stop disturbing me, whatever you want to do. But
exactly, right?
That's part. Like you and I, and if you're listening to this yourself, you have to take some sort of responsibility and stop just saying like, oh, it is what it is. Like I think that's like until you take responsibility, you're not going to make changes for anything. Once you take that responsibility, then you're able to that's like your first step to kind of taking that action and kind of moving forwards too. So and then the last thing I wanted to get on too, like what you've done the time study, is that go into your calendar and block off time. Right? Make yourself a calendar from Monday through Saturday, because that's the hours I say you guys should be working as a business owner, and block out the time that you need to and go into, like, say, your calendar app. Like, so let's say you finalize your calendar and you only want to do exploratory calls from the hours of 11 to 2 p.m. every day, and maybe you can switch it around throughout the week, but then go make sure that that's only your availability for those, exploratory calls in your calendar settings. Otherwise, people are going to continue to book on your schedule and you're like, well, what's going on? I only have my exploratory calls from these hours, but I'm getting all these exploratory calls during other hours. And then do some of the stuff we talked about in previous episodes about the, the qualifying and making sure that, who you're talking to are actually your ideal client profiles and are ready to actually move forward with you if you're the right solution. Like, stop wasting your time there too, I think is another one. Sorry.
I think it's important. And you just got to find what works for you, right? I mean, if it doesn't work for you and you can't stick to it, well, it's not going to work long term. Find it's like a diet. Find what works for you and stick with it. There's no point doing something that's only going to work for a week and you go, well, that's really good. Now I got my time management right. And then you revert back to old ways. Do something that you can maintain and work with. Like my wife, if she needs an alert to be reminded something, she uses reminders. So she's forever got alarms going off on her phone, which is alerting her to go do this, go do this, go do this. And it gets to the point sometimes when she's really busy, I get so annoyed with her alarm because she'll leave her phone lying around. And I'm like, hun, you left your phone in here again. There's an alert.
But it works for her, right? So
exactly,
essentially
it works for her. Everyone finds whatever works for them. I've got friends who will use notepad and pen to keep, in an old school journal to keep themselves tracked. I've got other people who I work with who say, look, if it's not in the calendar, I don't know about it. So even his wife has to put events for both of them, and school events and personal events and dates in the calendar, so he knows about it. So he knows he can't do anything at that time. Right. It just goes in the calendar, and it doesn't exist. And I think it's what works for you. There's no foolproof way of making this work. But the first step is, like you said, work out where your time is being spent. Then you can start to identify how to do that better, how to manage that time better. And maybe you can find things you can reduce your time on things you don't enjoy doing and increase it on things you do want to, spend more time doing, that you do enjoy doing, or you want to spend more time doing.
And I think like what I heard from you there too is the theme of accountability, where you have to hold yourself accountable or have some sort of system to hold yourself accountable. And if accountability is what you're looking for, ultimately, we said it, this is one of the reasons why we're also revamping our Triumph Mastermind program. So if you're interested in, kind of holding yourself accountable, getting daily support, having open Q&A sessions, every day, that's what Duarne and I are doing with the new Mastermind. So if you're interested, we're going to, include a link after the video. We'll include a link down below to the Mastermind. We're opening it up. We're going to be starting, here in a couple weeks, where we're going to help you answer questions, give you that accountability you're looking for. If you're wanting to, have a team around you that is your support system to help push you forward, to make sure that you're moving forward every single day, this might be the right solution for you. So take a look at that, check it out. Duarne and I are really excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome and amazing. So we have some founding member offers and benefits available to you guys. So go ahead and take a look at that. But which leads me into, kind of the next, thing that I want to talk to. I think a lot of people, we mentioned it earlier about trying to do everything, right? And what that also relates to is they try to service everybody, right? And they're trying to, I've had this conversation with people. It's like, hey, describe your ideal client. And you're like, well, anybody with a breath, and ultimately, Duarne, I know you feel the same way. You're not doing yourself any favors by describing your ideal client that way.
No,
100%.
I was watching Shark Tank the other day while I was having some lunch, and it's an old rerun. It's about these guys who have these coolers that they're selling. It's like a little travel pack of, you can put 3 cans or 3 bottles in there and chill them. And they're asked the question, like, who's your competitors? And one of the guys jumped up and said, ice. Like water, frozen water, ice. That's his competitor. And it's like, yeah, okay. I'm out. Like one of the judges, like, I'm out. Because you don't know who your competitors are. You don't have a niche. And when you tell me anyone who's using ice is going to convert and use this because it's better, well, you haven't done your market research. That's not the truth. That's not real. You really need to readdress what you're doing. And they hadn't niched down on who their clients really were. They had an assumption, but they hadn't niched. And what was discussed there was, and then I started listening, and I was hearing this on all these other pitches. If there's no niche, or the ones who would say, yeah, we can, anyone can use this, say, well, okay, but is that your client? Is anyone your client? Because how are you going to market to everyone? Because everyone needs a slightly different marketing technique. Everyone, has a slightly different use case. So it's a very interesting topic when you start getting into the niche conversation with people. and they start talking about, yes, we can solve everything. We can solve all your problems. Anyone can use this. We've got our product, Be Savvy, right? And honestly, it is not for everyone. It is very capable as a piece of software for sales and marketing, but there is quite a lot of setup, learning required to make it work really effectively. And I think the problem is everybody goes out there, signs up for something, and says, yeah, anyone can use this. And then when they realize that it can't be used by everyone, they come away feeling disappointed. Or if you're selling a product and you're going out trying to sell it to everyone, you're just shotgunning it. You know, you're just trying to put it out there and just hope something works.
Well, when it comes to put it this way, right? If you say you're trying to service everybody, now you're also competing against every other person out there that says, I service with everybody. So what do you leave the prospect to determine who's better? Price. Yeah. So all you're going to do is start, when you say you service everybody, you're dime a dozen then. For example, if you're a bookkeeper and say, I'll do anybody's books, well, then you're just a dime a dozen bookkeeper. But if you specialize in home services, right, and you help people manage home service business owners better, their bookkeeping better with their financial statements and your analysis, and you become a home service bookkeeper, you now become a niche in yourself. You're specialized. You can charge a premium, and you can sell it that way because you offer more experience and support than Jane down the road who just does bookkeeping for everybody. She's not going to know, ins and outs of let's say, for example, we're talking about home services, right? And ways where you could save money or other, expense reductions that you could do, that unless it's a general expense reduction because she services everybody. But if you can niche down, you can charge more. An example, Alex Hormozi said it, and I don't remember the exact example, but this is the concept, and it's the same concept across the board. Let's say you sell a course, right? That's on, how to talk, right? How to sell. Well, if you just label it how to sell, how much can you sell that for? Maybe free, more, maybe $9 or $10, right? Because it's general.
Yeah.
But if you can narrow that down a little bit more, and instead of how to sell, you could say how to sell B2B. Well, now you can, since it's niched, instead of selling it for $10, maybe you can sell that for $97 because it's niched. But now you can go even further. How to sell B2B lawn equipment. Okay, now we're talking a little bit further niche down. So now instead of maybe $97, you can sell that for maybe $4.97 or $9.97 because it's so niched. And you can go even one step further. You can show how to sell B2B lawn equipment to farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, instead of just $9.97, you could probably sell that for like $19.97 or $29.97. So you could see how you could take a concept video for that would typically you would charge $9.99 or $10 for, and essentially take the same knowledge and niche it down and get 100, 200 times ROI on it for the same essential information, but you've niched it down a little bit and become so specific. Same thing in your business. If you're having all these sort of kickbacks and feedback on your price, it's because you're not specialized. You're not niche. You're being compared to somebody who also is across the board, which is probably why they're coming to you and say, I feel like you're too expensive. But if you market yourself and you become that expert in that small little, arena, now you're the expert in that arena. So now when you say, I'm going to charge you $1,000, right, for 5 hours of my time, it becomes worth it. Whereas when you're trying to sell yourself against everybody else who's across the board, maybe charging $20 and you're not niched, well, how you can't compete. And so that's why if you want to charge more, niche down.
Well, it's funny you should say it. Like, I remember that one of the most interesting stories of niching down that I heard of was, I think it was Frank Kern was talking about how he wrote a book about dogs, and it was about dog behavior, etc. And he released this book, and he made a bunch of money on it. He was marketing it, and he made a bunch of money on it. He then went and created a new cover about a breed, and he launched it and sold the same book, but it was all about an individual breed, like a Dachshund, a German Shepherd, Maltese, whatever. So there's like 20, 30 different variations of the same book, but he sold it into the niches of the groups of people interested in those particular dogs because they wanted to buy books about their dogs, not about generalist. And I think there's a lot to that. I mean, how many times would you go and buy a book on sales if you're in IT sales, teaching you how to sell farm machinery? Probably not, because there's not a lot of relevance between the two, or at least on the outset. But if it could be the same premise, it could be the same frameworks, it could be the same messaging, could be the same techniques. But because it's niched down and sold to a specific person in a specific industry, you become the authority, you have more value add, you actually become a more valuable service, like you mentioned, and you can charge a little bit more, or at least appear to have less competition because you appear to be the expert in the field of that. And a great example of that is doctors. Look at medical practice. Specialists and how much you pay a specialist who specializes in a very particular field. You wouldn't go to, a heart surgeon and ask them to, fix a fractured foot. It just wouldn't, it's just not necessary. They wouldn't do it. Right? It's just not something they're interested in. You wouldn't go to a brain surgeon and ask him to, identify why you're having breathing problems. It's just this, you got to be smart with how you actually, come up with your niches. And we're not saying niche down too far, but you can certainly niche down to a point where you are a specialist in a particular field. And, we've all witnessed it. We've all had it in business where we come out going, oh, look, I can do all of this. But then it comes down to that time management we talked about as well. How much time can you honestly give to doing all of these different things? And how much better service could you offer if you're able to deliver on just a niche, some amount of products and services? And how would that affect
exactly? And what I think a lot of people, and I've had this thought early on too. It's, well, if I niche down, I'm limiting my people, right? Or I'm limiting my outreach. But great, because when you target your messaging, or you target your copy, and you target your services, you just become that more of an expert, and people pay for expertise. If you're a general service, as you said, like, who's going to want to buy a general sales book? Which is, if you're trying to sell a general sales book, it's probably just going to be high level strategy, high level tips. It's not going to be narrowed down. Every book probably has that. Nowadays, you can get that probably easily off of the internet or off of ChatGPT. But when you buy a book that's specified, now people are going to pay a little bit more for it. You can charge $40 for the book, $50 for the book, and more people are going to buy it that are in that arena. Yes, you're going to have a smaller number of people that you have to service, but those small number of people are going to be willing to pay an increased price, which is more, I would say, it offsets the reduction, exponentially. Just because you reduce your client size by 90%, for example, you're able to charge maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And those people who are willing to pay more cause less headaches.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I think a lot of people don't realize is they try to get the cheap clients, or the ones that are going to be a time suck. If they're the ones that pay you and always try to negotiate you down on your price or the investment, they're the ones that are going to take up a lot of your time. They're the ones that are going to, ask you 8 million questions, or, complain when one thing doesn't look right, and say, see, I want my money back. Right. Those are the ones that really suck. But the people that, are spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month with you or on a project, as long as you provide them the outcome that you stated, they're not going to complain. They're not going to micromanage. They're too busy doing other things that make them money to try and micromanage. And I'm not saying go and sell high ticket and then give them shit product. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying go find the people that are willing to invest, that understand the value that you bring, because they're not going to, try and nickel and dime you, because they understand the value that you're bringing to their life.
Think about it like this. Think of your favorite restaurant. All right. Then think about your next top 5 favorite restaurants. What do their menus look like? Are their menus like 20, 30, 40, 50 items? Or are they a select group of items and they are really, really good at them. You know, think of a food truck.
It'd be, and I don't mean to interrupt you in terms of the food truck.
No,
but
go
just
ahead.
think of in the United States, the two craziest lines in fast food are Chick-fil-A and Cane's. They're, during lunchtime and dinner time, they're always wrapped around the building, right? And they're always backed up. And what are they serving? They sell one thing, and that's chicken. Cane's, chicken fingers. That's it. And maybe a chicken finger sandwich. So they put it on a bun. Yeah. But that's it. They don't offer anything else, like you were just saying. Same thing with Chick-fil-A. It's chicken. It's chicken nuggets. That's it. They're not selling burger. And I love Arby's, but just as a contrast, I can always know that I'm never going to have a long line at Arby's. But why is that? Because their menu is like ridiculous. Now they're offering burgers, and it used to be roast beef. When I worked there when I was a teenager, it used to be basically just roast beef and some sliced turkey. Now they have everything on the menu. They have burgers, gyros, like all this stuff. And
one step further, you think of buffets. How many times are you going to a buffet and walk away going, "Oh, that was amazing. The quality of that food was incredible." Right. Or they've got one dish in there that's actually decent and the rest are okay. Right. And you find yourself
the only context I can say the only thing where I would say that doesn't apply is Las Vegas.
Oh, of course.
I've been to Las Vegas.
That's a world in itself,
all the time.
Right?
Like, the food is great. 90% of the time, the food is great at big hotel buffets. But your mom and pop buffet, at your local city, in the plaza. Oh. Yeah, you're right. I don't
go into your mall, get yourself a Chinese buffet in the local mall. Those sort of places. Look, they're about catering to the people who want to mass pile their plates. And this is why people look at you sometimes as a business too. If you come to them with this huge menu of everything you can do, they're just going to look at you and go, "What? I'm confused. I don't know. Do you really specialize in this?" And I had a meeting probably about, maybe a month and a half ago. And one of the questions that was asked was, "What are you really, really good at? What is your specialty?" If you had to say that, what you're really good at, what would you say? And I actually reversed the script and said, "Well, you know what we're really not good at?" And I laid it out on the table, what we weren't good at. And they were like, "Okay, so everything else we've talked about, that's what I want to do. The thing you've just mentioned, I've got someone else who can do that. So don't stress. All right, let's do business." But I mean, it really comes down to, it's like my brother's in interior design, right? He's got a whole business based around home staging. And I remember years ago hearing this one statement about interior design is, whenever you think the room is perfect, go in and pick one item and take it out of the room, because you probably got too much in there. And I think it's the same with our suite of products, all right? I hate seeing quotes where it comes through with the main item and then 15 accessories that I can optionally add. How many times do you try to do it, buy a computer from Dell or something, and by the time you finish, you're like, "Whoa," or try and buy a domain from GoDaddy or any of those other, and then you're like, "Would you like this? Would you like this? Would you like this? Would you like?" And by the end, you're like, "I just want to buy the freaking domain." Vistaprint, that's another one where they'll sit there and try and upsell you 15 times during the process.
And I get it, like upselling is a good prop, but I think you're saying they're doing it too much. Like, upsell is good. Absolutely. Like, hey, by the way, and but upselling, when you think of upselling, is you want to have it, one, targeted, but two, it actually complements or gives a higher quantity
value to the original
quality, right, of what you're selling. Yeah. You don't want to just say, "Hey, here's all these 17 different things," like you're saying, as an upsell. Vistaprint, I want to buy business cards. Hey, do you want to go buy this dinner china that we can put your name on? Like, no, or like a domain.
Hey, you want to buy a flag that you can put in your front yard?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times are you going into McDonald's and it's like, "Would you like fries with that?" If you're buying like an ice cream cone or a sundae, you want fries with that? No, I don't want fries with my ice cream. That's the offer. But
so when you think of and I think that's a good point. Like, when you think of the opportunities for you to upsell in your business, don't just, for example, like, don't say, "All right, you're bookkeeping," and then try to upsell them to, marketing support. Even if you have partners that do that, like, they're probably not looking in the same realm right now. Like, create that relationship with them. And if you want to upsell, offer something that is significant and complementary. So, directly. So if you're selling bookkeeping, instead of, when they sign on for, let's say they sign on for quarterly, maybe you say, hey, by the way, if we upgrade this to monthly, I'll give you the first month free, but it only adds like 20% to the cost, where people might think it might be 3 times the cost, but it's only 20-25% more. Or you upsell like the ability, like let's say in your basic package, you don't have a financial review session with them, every month, but you could upsell them to that because it's complementary. It's more value, right? It helps you provide the main service and the main outcome to them in an easier fashion for yourself. That's what your upsells should be directly. Once you create that relationship, that's when you can start having the conversations around other things that could potentially be, given to them as support when you built that relationship. Don't try to do it all at once.
Yeah, and look, you'll thank yourself for it as well, because you've got a whole lot less SKUs to worry about, a lot less services and products to deal with, and you can really just focus on going out and signing up customers for the one type of service.
Right.
It reduces the overwhelm when you talk to somebody, and it adds the other thing you can be really cautious when you're having a first conversation with people. You're saying, yeah, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. They're going to ask themselves, well, how good are you really doing each of these things? And then it's, even if you're really, really good at doing the first thing that you were told them you could do, you may actually completely lose that potential opportunity because they think you're a jack of all trades and a master of nothing.
Right.
And sometimes offer less, build the trust, then add more, because you will come across as a more value proposition, and you've already built up that know, like, trust factor by that point as well, right? And I think that's the problem, is a lot of people, they get so desperate to get a sale that they want to make sure that no one else has a chance of winning the sale by telling them that we could solve all these other problems at the same time. And we're all guilty of it at times, where sometimes we just got to sit back and go, you know what? You only had this problem. Let's just solve this one problem. And I'm going to stop there.
Yep.
I'm going to hint that I can help you with other things if you need it, but let's not focus on any of that today. Let's just solve your problem you have today, and let's focus on that.
And with that, a lot of people, their mind, right, can only focus on maybe 1 or 2 problems and fixes. So yes, long-term, they need solutions to everything, but they're really only focused on 1 or 2 things right now. Great. Help them solve that. Give them the quick win. Give them the outcome that they're desired. And then you can begin to extend the relationship with them after that.
Absolutely.
I think like, if you overwhelm them too much, they're just going to glaze over. And
last time you bought a television, you go into a store, they sit there, you sign up and you agree to buy that television. They rarely will try and sell you the television with a warranty and a Blu-ray player and a gaming console and a box of Blu-rays to take home with you, back when the Blu-rays were a thing, right? Like, they would make sure they sell you on the TV. Then they would ask you other follow-up questions like, oh, would you like to add a warranty to that? Because they've already got a commit from you. At that point, you can then talk about other products and services you can offer to assist with that original product. But try not to overwhelm initially. And I think that's a really big thing. And when you're niching down, you really want to focus on that type of client, whatever the product that you're going to be offering to that type of client, and just try and focus on that for a bit. And you might find, just by having the mindset focused on that one type of client and that one type of product, you may sell a lot more of it, or you may be known as the expert in that field. Right. And before you know it, you've got all these sales coming in on that product and that service. I've got one client I've been working with for over a decade, marketing professional out of Australia. And she has a niche of law firms, because she just does, and she never went in saying, I want to be a specialist on law firms, but she just happens to get really good referrals from law firms. And together we've collaborated probably on over 20, 30 different law firm websites together, and offered marketing services throughout. So it's an incredible thing. Once you become an expert in a particular niche, you can actually set up a very successful business around that particular niche without having to go outside your niche.
Right. And the beauty too is like also like once you start advertising to, let's say, a particular niche, people from similar niches will start still outreaching you. And then you can make the decision if it's something where you want to help them or not. But they're going to know, and they've outreached you because you're niched. They're also going to, understand that you have, kind of like a higher, monthly investment or whatever. But that's the beauty. Like, for example, like people that like BMW, they probably still look at Mercedes, right? Or they still look at,
Audis,
some of the other Audis and all these other, right? And they get intrigued by like, wait a minute, why is this person only specializing in this industry? I'm similar to that. Let me see if they could do the same thing like with me. And you as the owner, you as the expert can then decide, yes, I think I can, or no, I'm just going to stay within my realm, but maybe give them and point them in the right direction. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to you taking control of your business, not you trying to be at the control of every one of your clients.
Yeah. And I think just go back to that restaurant thing again. You can be an expert in one type of dish. You can have one type of food that you offer with variations and still be really, really successful. And I think that's the common misunderstanding. Everyone's going, no, especially entrepreneurs. We're always got all 100 ideas we're coming up with. We're always thinking, let's add this, let's add this, let's add this. Sometimes you need a little person on your shoulder saying, stop. What you're doing is working. Grow that. You don't need to add more products. You don't need to add more service. You don't need to add more staff to be able to deliver those products and services. Just focus on what you're doing and do it really well.
I 100% believe in that. And, I feel like, we've talked about this before. Like I got caught up in that. Like, I'm going to do all these different things. And then it's like, no, let's kind of let's rein it back in and really begin to kind of focus. And when I was early, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do all this stuff for everybody. But really, it wasn't doing me any favors. And now it's the messaging is more targeted, and everything. Yeah. So,
well, the other thing is what you typically find is when you're not niched down, you charge more when you're niched down because that's your focus and people respect you for it. If you start putting in other services that you're not niched down onto, you're probably going to undersell them. You're probably going to offer them at a lower price than what they're actually valued at because you don't fully understand the value of what you're offering because you're not niched on it. And that can actually drive down your total, return, cost and revenue, profit on your, sales as well. So if you're making good profit on your initial product, but then you realize you've added 3 other products on top of it, which are not your specialty, and you might have to end up outsourcing or spending double the time to deliver than your main product. Was it really a good idea to add them on at a fraction of the profit?
Right. Well, and see where that comes down to is not knowing, like a lot of people, they don't understand that, right? They don't they just think they see dollar signs and they see an extra $500 a month. But what they don't realize is that they don't realize that by selling that add-on, it's going to add an extra 4 hours a month to their requirement, right? So now that brings down that money per hour down significantly, as well as they're not measuring the outcomes that they're providing. And in the long term, they may realize that by adding that extra $500 a month to the package, the likelihood of success for them providing that actual first outcome, let's say, for example, it gets reduced by 30%, where they have to do 30% more work until they get to that outcome. And is it worth it? Right. Yeah. Whereas if you were to just focus on your initial sort of service and have 100% likelihood of success in the timeline that you promise, right, you get better testimonials, better referrals, and it's just more off. Stop looking for dollar signs, right? And I know it's hard. It's easier said than done when you're maybe struggling for cash flow and you're like, that extra $500 could mean a lot to me. But take the extra time to find another. Let's say it's $1,000 client. Instead of going from 1,001 client to go to 1,500 and require all this extra time for you and all this extra potentially reduction in outcome. Whereas if you just spent maybe an extra week or two to find another $1,000 client, you've made more money and your likelihood of success is greater than just one client at 1,500. So don't look for just dollar signs. I had this conversation with a client, a few months ago where they were just always focused on the gross revenue number, not the net revenue number. And what ended up happening was when we actually went in and figured out what was the cost of providing the service for the money that they were getting, they were losing money. So essentially they're thinking, hey, I'm making $5,000 a month from this client, but it's a cleaning service business. And ultimately they were paying out like $5,200 a month in salaries and benefits. So it's like, they're like, where's my money going? It's, well, because every month you're spending $200 just to keep that client. And by not understanding your numbers, you don't know that. Or you can't plan. I had another client where they just didn't know the gross profit. They just see the dollar per hour that they get, and they don't add in the salaries, or they're like, "Oh, I'm only paying X amount in a salary," but there's indirect costs related to that. It's not just an hourly rate. You have salary, you have taxes, you have Social Security, you have Medicare, you have unemployment, you have workers' comp, and all these things play into it, like your projection. And so you may think you're getting $30 an hour per se, just by being there, and you're only paying $15 an hour. So you figure, hey, I'm getting $15 an hour. Why is my bank account not matched $15 an hour every week by number of employees I have? Well, it's because you're actually making like 5. So you're making all these decisions based on thinking that you're going to get $15 an hour, when in reality you're only making 5. It's 67% less.
Yeah, and that's a great example, because I mean, if you look at it, you look at these products that are sitting on the shelves. And like I see this all the time, where you've got a product and you look at it and you go, I wonder how much it costs to make that. And that's one component of it being on a shelf. The other component is the marketing, the placement cost, the restocking cost, the shipping cost. You've got the all these other
costs. There's a warranty on it.
Warranty, staffing in the back end to take the order, place the order, pack the order, send the order. All of these things come into play. When you're an entrepreneur, and you're especially solopreneur, it's so easy to get caught up in the fact that your time is not of any value. And what you will tend to do is you'll say, well, I can do this job for $500 a month. And then you look at it and you go, well, I'm spending, 25 hours to do this job. Yep. So what are you really getting paid? And you'll divide it by the 25 hours and you go, oh, okay, that's my rate. But what you tend to forget is there's all these other costs that are associated. Taxes. One of the common ones is payment gateways. People don't take into consideration how much you actually have to pay to a payment gateway to get paid.
It's typically 3-4% right now.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can get it for less, but if your margin if you build your product where your margin is, let's say 6%, and you're like, where's my money? Well, half of that is going to the gateway.
Yep. And people don't see that. People don't realize, people don't factor. And that's where, especially when it comes to a service-based product, yes, you've got to build a portfolio. Yes, you've got to get customers on to get started and get the references and recommendations. But at some point, you need to start charging. If there's everyone else in your industry is charging $150 to $180 an hour for the same service that you're going out and saying, I'm going to offer $75 an hour, ask yourself, why are they charging that much? It's not because they can't charge $75 an hour, because they probably could. But if they did it, maybe they're not going to be in business in 12 months. So ask the questioning, do the research, and work it out. There's no need to undercut that far. Maybe go in and offer it at $140 an hour. But work out what your real hard costs are. And the other thing you should definitely look at doing is work out, if I was to hire someone to do this job, how much would that cost me as opposed to me doing the job? Because you might be able to do the job for $10 an hour and feel comfortable with that. But you're not going to be able to hire anyone for $10 an hour to do that job. So when it comes time for hiring people, they're not going to be, and if they're working on those customers that you've signed up on legacy pricing, that's not going to be any benefit.
You're going to be, you're basically
you're going to be losing money
every time. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You're going to be going, oh, look, why am I not doubling the amount of, I'm bringing all these new business customers on. So yeah.
I think this is a good conversation for like another episode where it's like planning your business appropriately for growth. And maybe this is what we're going to do. This is what we'll talk about, next week is really like, how do you set up and plan now, like even as a solopreneur, for your future growth? And I think this is ultimately what begins to gets you in that mindset to begin thinking that way, so that you're not setting yourself up for failure. So I think this is a good kind of topic we can talk about.
I like
Next
that.
week.
Yeah.
Making a note.
Because I mean, like we've all done it. We've all taken deals we know we shouldn't have done because either desperation or just trying to get a win on the board, or we just felt like that was someone we wanted to help or we needed to do the job and do the deal for. But at the end of the day, it's business. We're not charities, and you need to make sure that whatever you do is sustainable and allows you to grow. If your entire business, and like I've heard this on Shark Tank, I reference it again, but if your whole business is related around one person, that's you, and you've got no processes in place to, keep things operational without you, well, you're never going to take a holiday. You get hit by a bus, your business is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, chances are that, you haven't set up the processes for scalability because it's just you. The amount of business owners I've met who will tell me that they don't have a succession plan. They don't have a delegation plan. They don't have any, like, they want to bring people on, but they dread the idea of it because they just look at how much work it's going to be to create all their standard operating procedures to be able to hand off work to them and train them up to do the work.
Well, and all of that comes down to this, and we've said it before. If it all relies on you, you own a job. You don't own a business, right? Businesses can be sold. Businesses are going to grow. But if everything relies on you and you're not willing to delegate, you're not willing to put everything on paper, right? You're not willing to develop processes, you don't own a business. You own a job. Because what's going to happen, let's say you want to retire, you're not going to be able to sell it because it relies on you. So you're not growing an asset. You're basically just keeping a job for yourself. And is that what you want? If your goal is to sell something in the future, to grow a business, to sell it, to get out, to exit it, then you have to be setting yourself up now with developing processes, putting things on paper, right? Getting people in that can do the job without you, and take yourself out of the equation as much as possible. That's what people are going to buy. They're not going to buy you, right? Because you're wanting to retire, so there's nothing to sell if everything relies on you.
Absolutely. And I think it's that old premise of, why did you start the business? Was it because you don't want to work for somebody else? Or was it to reduce your stress? Was it to get more time back? Whatever it might be, just ask yourself, am I heading in the direction that's working towards that goal that I set myself at the beginning? Because sometimes working for somebody else is the best choice. Sometimes having your business might not work. And it's okay to say that. But you can give it a red hot crack and you can get in there and try all these things. But today, I love the time management conversation. I think that was really important. I think whether you're an employee or you're actually own your own business, it's an important thing you should do because it can actually help you in both instances. When it comes down to it, niching down is extremely important. Whether you're an employee and you're trying to go out and get customers, or you're a business owner and you're trying to niche down on what services and who your customers are, both are very important. Right. And just going back to last week's conversation around cash flow, which kind of ties into what we're talking about now, is knowing your numbers. Yeah. Know what your numbers are so you actually know what you can do in business and what you can't do in business.
Yeah, I would say for this week, as we're kind of wrapping up, like you mentioned it, like calendar. I also think like the biggest thing that if you take anything away from today's episode, it should be the fact that you need to do a time study if you have never done a time study in your business and on yourself. Do a time study of where your time is going. Where are you potentially losing opportunities within your day? And do it for a week. You don't have to do this forever. The idea is that you do it for a week, which is a typical week for yourself. So don't do it if you have a lot of doctor's appointments or you're scheduled on vacation. Like, that's not going to help you. Do it on a typical work week and do it from sun up to when you go to bed. So when you wake up to when you go to bed, document every part of your day for 7 days. Then when you're done, go back and analyze it. Say, okay, where are my opportunities for improvement? Where are my opportunities to reduce some leaks in my calendar? And then how do you then build that into a recurring template for your day that you can set up Monday through Saturday? I understand people sometimes need to reset. Great, take Sunday to do that. But as a business owner, you should be at least planning and doing something for your business 6 days a week, especially if you aren't where you want to be. If you are not where you want to be in your business and you're spending time watching a movie, or you're spending time, going for drives and taking vacations, your priorities are wrong, right? Your attention is in the wrong space. If you're not where you need to be, you need to spend every waking moment looking and finding ideal clients to have a conversation with and to potentially offer a solution for them and an outcome for them if they have a problem. But I don't want to hear excuses from people. And I hear this all the time, like, hey, where you go? Well, I'm going to go spend the weekend away, for family. Okay, great. Are you, but then, when they come back, they complain that they don't have enough clients, or they complain that, their cash flow isn't where they need to be, or the revenue is not where they want it to be, and their profit's not where they want it to be. It's like, look at your priorities. Look where you're spending your time. Where you're spending your time is going to be a direct reflection of, right, how successful your business is.
Spend the time now so you get the free time later.
Exactly. Invest now in yourself. Invest that time. Give up maybe a year or two of vacations and invest it in yourself, right? And you'll be able to take more vacations because then you've delegated to your staff, right? You have a business that's built around you. And that's when you're spending more time away from your business, it's still successful because you have that built, right? When I say your time is a reflection of where you are, is when you're the only one in the business, right?
Yeah.
When you have a successful business, your time is not necessarily the success of the business, because you can go out and invest your time elsewhere, right? Maybe it's another business venture. Maybe it's more time with the family. Like, those are the goals once you've developed that successful business. But if you're still struggling to develop your successful business and then trying to get all the benefits of having a successful business, like more time, flexibility, all that kind of stuff, that's what I mean when I say your priorities aren't aligned and you don't have a successful business.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. But if you realign your time with your vision and you invest in the business to build that successful business, then that time, right, that freedom that you want, or whatever it is that you're looking for, then that will come. But if you're trying, and so envision it, and I wholeheartedly believe in using your mind to manifest, right? It's the power of attraction. See yourself in that scenario. See yourself with the flexibilities. Feel yourself, right, going on these vacations and the memories you're making with your family. But don't try to do those things right now until you've had that successful business growth. And once you get that successful business growth, boom, now you're going to be able to experience those things that you've already been visualizing for yourself. But you can't have one before the other.
Unfortunately, that is very true. Be prepared for the work.
Absolutely. And trust me, like, we're in the midst of it. Like, right now, I'm not as successful as I want to be. My business isn't where I want it to be. So I'm doing these things. I'm kind of realigning my vision. And I do this on a regular basis. But
we're on the tools. We're doing the work.
Exactly. Do the work. Be willing to give up a little bit of short-term, pleasure for long-term, right? Pleasure and success. So if you made it this far, we appreciate you. Duarne and I always love having these conversations. We love talking to you. Drop a comment down below. Like, what part of today's episode meant the most to you, right? Drop us a comment. Give us your feedback. We're here every week. This is episode 13 already, which means we've been here for about 13 weeks, which is pretty crazy. It's about a third of the year. I love it, Duarne. Glad to be here with you. Or it's not a third, a quarter. I'm an accountant. I know what I'm doing. Quarter of the year already. But yeah, we love you. We thank you for being here. We hope something from today stuck with you that you're able to take with you. Again, you don't have to do everything, right? Learn from us, learn from others. Take pieces and parts. As Duarne said earlier, what means something to you that you're able to replicate? That's what you want to take from the episode. Don't try to do everything because you won't stick to it. But pick one thing and take that and put it into practice. That's all you got to do. One thing is, right, as I said earlier in the episode, one thing every day is going to build your momentum. Small steps every single day towards your goals, towards your success is all you need to do. And by the end, you're going to look back and be like, man, I'm glad I didn't try to make big leaps. I'm glad I just take one step every single day, because if I look around and I turn around, I'm miles ahead of where I was. And that's all you have to do.
And you'll
Duarne, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you for the invite again, Dave. Always fun.
I love these conversations. Look forward to it. And Duarne, have a wonderful weekend. I look forward to seeing that beautiful baby. Do you guys know the sex yet, or is it a surprise?
It's a little girl, so
Nice.
it kind of works out well. We get, another little girl back to back. So all the clothes and toys, we get to use them again.
Reuse. There you go. Well, congrats, Paige, if you're listening. I'm sure you're ready to pop. So I wish you guys success with the new baby. Love seeing it. Maybe we might see you depending on timing. So we may or may not see Duarne next week. So Duarne's not here. He's going to be in the hospital, but we love you all. Thanks for joining us. Duarne, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
You too, buddy. Take care.
All right.
See everybody.
Bye, everyone.
You got me loser, set me